Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our November 4th council meeting. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Here.
Mr. Menegini?
Here.
Dr. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Gottstein?
Here.
Mr. Babalani?
Here.
Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of October 21st, 2013. Any additions or corrections?
Make a motion we approve the minutes of the regular meeting of October 21st, 2013.
Support.
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Mark. Roll call.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes. Approval manifest 2013-21 in the amount of $452,948.61. Mark.
I got a couple, Jeremy. On page 1, Ray, the partnership, they were supposed to work with us for the 4,000, and we haven't.
Yep, they've been working with us, and there's no agreement at this point. So we've had a number of meetings, and we can't get consensus. I think it's members of the partnership that can't come to consensus, not the partnership as a whole. So that's the invoice for this year, and we continue working with them. One of the areas that, I think the county has some real reservations over making a change as much as anybody. So that's where we're at.
I think with this, we've been waiting for them to come up with another solution for at least 3 years now. That
Yeah.
they were going to work on it, going to work on it, going to work on it. At this point, I think it's something we should be in, but if they're not going to actually work on stuff when they say they're going to, I don't know that the city should be involved anymore.
Well, if you want to call the partnership, the economic development arm of the partnership is comprised of the municipalities, the county, and then private business. The partnership board said the municipalities need to work it out and come up with a solution. They don't feel like they should be dictating to us what that solution should be. We haven't been able to come to an agreement.
Well, at that point, if their board is the one overseeing it, they should have pushed a solution forward. Taken a leadership role. If nobody can come to a consensus, it's the board's position, they should be taking the leadership.
I guess I feel the same way Jeremy does. I don't think we should be paying that kind of money. I think it should be for various reasons that we talked about in numerous meetings before. And I think we should hold out. And something should be worked out, because I don't feel we should. I again agree with Jeremy that we should be part of it, but I don't think we should be paying the same as the bigger cities that have more benefit.
It's the board's pleasure.
What's the breakdown on the per unit rate? Like we're city 4,000 for the city of Norway. What's Iron Mountain paying? What's Brady Township paying?
We're all paying 4,000.
Everybody's paying 4,000?
The townships, Norway
Well,
Township.
Brady, I don't think Norway Township is.
Norway Township pays $250, and the other townships are not paying.
Oh, but Brady Township.
Brady
They
is
pay
4,000.
They do pay for it, and then Kingsford does, and Iron Mountain does. Well, I gotta agree with both Jeremy and Mark, and I was kind of surprised to see this letter here where they didn't mention anything about they're gonna try to work on it, because that was last year. I sat down with them, and you were in there, and they had their board members there, and they were gonna look into it and blah, 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 and all it was idle chatter, I guess. But on the overall, there's so many people that this is beneficial to, and there's an awful lot of people from Norway, living in Norway, that do work in Iron Mountain, Kingsford, and Brading Township. So I disagree with it in a way, but I think it does more good than harm. And nobody said life was fair, and this is not fair. We're paying the same amount as the others, but I'm still for it.
Chris or Dr. Hayes, any thoughts?
My feelings are the same as they've always been. I think that it should be based on size of the city, population, or SEV or something. I do think we should be members. I don't necessarily agree again with the 4,000, but hopefully something will change in the next year, but so far it's not
Well,
looking
unless
so
we
good.
take action, nothing will change. That was the one thing I was gonna bring up tonight too, is that we pay the same as larger municipalities. And
But I think our only action we can take is either to pay it or not to pay it.
I don't think we should pay it. I think we should hold out, and when they see that we're not gonna pay it, then they'll take action. But I do think we should be a member, and I do think we'll get some response if we tell them we're not gonna pay it.
I agree, and I hope that pushes them, if we're going to, if we decide to take that step, it pushes them to actually do something rather than just saying they're gonna talk about
I
it.
would make a recommendation, or I would respectfully ask that the council entertain having them come to this meeting, because I've had a dozen meetings with them, and I'm frustrated over it. I think that we definitely get our $4,000 worth. I think that we're going to be in a bad position in economic development by not having that level or being part of that level. But to make the change, the only way I can see it is if they come here to you guys, because I know that I sit on the board and represent the city, but at this point, you know, there's just, you know, Iron Mountain, Kingsford, the county, Brighting Township, I mean, they can understand our issue, but, you know, they're not in a position to accept making a change, which means they would pay more than what we're paying, you know, or what they're paying now. So,
They would be welcome to come here, but I don't know how effective that would be, because they were here 2 years ago.
well, maybe different people that would come representing them would be more effective than the ones that came.
For myself, I don't think there's anything that they're gonna tell me that's gonna make me change my mind that we should be paying the same amount.
But they can hear directly from you why you think that. You know, they can hear from all of you as to why you feel as strongly as you do. I relay that message, but I don't think it comes across. We met at the meeting, and I'm not sure,
Jeremy was there also, and
but I'm not sure that came across. I don't know, I mean,
I don't know, I didn't think I could make it any plainer.
well,
I make a motion, we reduce our payment to the Dickinson Area Partnership to $2,000.
Support?
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Mark. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Gotstein?
No.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
No.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Okay.
I got a couple more. Ray, about midway down the financial for the administration, Christine McMahon, meals, mileage, is she a new employee?
she is, we sent her to Marquette for a class.
She's the new utility billing clerk. She's taking
Oh,
Paula's
okay.
place.
Okay. And then the city directory, is that a phone directory, right underneath that, 2014 city directory publication? Is that for the phone, what we were having problems with, or is that for something else? $455,
I'd have to find out, I don't know.
okay.
Mary, do you know that one?
No, I'm not familiar with, I thought maybe it was the Polk directory, but I'm not familiar with Info Group. I'll have to pull the invoice.
Okay, on page 2, the porta-johns for, out by the soccer field, $255, are those pulled in the winter?
Yes,
Okay, so I take it that that's the last bill for a while for that.
I would think so.
Under the street improvement bond, the interest payment there, Ray, under the debt services, how many more years do we have on that? Is that 9th Avenue?
I'm sorry, what was that?
The street improvement bond, the interest payment, is that 9th Avenue to $12,000 under the
department?
debt service?
It's the bottom, it's debt service, the second one.
That was that a 15-year issue, Ray? the street,
Yeah, the streets don't go beyond 15 years.
that was, I believe, an '06 issue, so I think it's 2021.
That's for ninth?
Is that,
That was for all of the, that was the millage that you.
oh,
paid.
that's the millage, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. On page 3, the Coleman Engineering, Ray, about 8 items up from the bottom. Power dam site maps and permits, what is that for?
I don't know, I'll have to check in for that, that's in electric.
Yeah.
And that was not, that was approved through the departments, so.
Okay. On page 4, the vehicles under the electric side, the inspections, there's 2 trucks, I'm sure it's the line trucks. They were different amounts. Aren't the inspections the same, 208 and 204?
I'll have to ask that question.
I wonder, looking at it, if one of the numbers got transposed, because it's 26 and 62.
Yeah, I'll look into that in the morning.
Okay. And then, I had questioned this before, and I don't remember if we were checking on a deductible, but I believe it's the repairs right up above that for the vehicles.
I don't believe we hit our deductible,
We
though.
didn't hit the deductible?
Not on the repair that we had to do.
Okay, and then on page 5, the water analysis, how did that work out, Ray? Whitewater Association water analysis fee, everything come back okay, or?
Yeah, as far as I know.
Okay, that's all I got.
Chris?
Page 1, Coleman Engineering, the Norway Township zoning map update. Are we billing the township for that then, or what?
We share expense, we're gonna have to discuss as to how the best way to share that expense. Because they, either QPAD bills them directly, or we get billed directly to them, or we would invoice them.
Okay,
It's one or the other, depending on how, whoever handles that.
okay, so we'll be splitting the cost of that
Right.
with them? Okay.
Right, and then we would send that, probably invoice them. I mean, if they send us one bill, like sometimes if we get like an engineering bill as opposed to QPAD, you could probably set up ahead of time to split the bill.
Well, this one's Coleman.
Right, so probably we'll just invoice them separate for half.
And then on page 3, under electric, there's Superior Equipment and Supply Hydro Substation Control Building for $7,423. I'm not exactly sure what was that for? Budgeted item we had, or was that?
I'll have to check on that.
And that's all I had.
Okay, Dr. Hayes?
Well, I had was the membership renewal for the Dickens Area Partnership, and I guess I would invite the members of the board to the next meeting to discuss the payment of the other $2,000.
Yeah, I agree with you, Doc. I mean, I think they should come here. I think the same type of meeting we had with Lee and Jeremy, and agree, Lee, you were pretty straightforward, but I think that message, I think they should come.
I don't think if we don't do anything, we just grump about it and don't do anything, and nothing will ever happen, so.
I agree. Anything else? Lee?
Well, a couple of the items have been covered already, except here on page 1, for our CPA interim billing audit, $11,000. Now, we got a letter from our CPA saying here that, how do you put this? To date, I have not yet completed all the fieldwork necessary to allow me to opine on your financial statements. Please note this delay is in no way the fault of the city or its employees. I am requesting that the completion date be extended to November 15th, and the penalties that can be invoked be waived to that date. Now, I'm assuming no harm, no foul on this, but he is 15 days late, and what are the penalties that we can put on him?
Well, with withhold payment, and there was so much per day, wasn't there?
Yeah, I don't remember there's, in his contract, it's so much per day that we could charge him.
Well, the least I think we can do is not pay him until we get the whole thing,
Right.
until it's
I
complete.
suggested to him that he send that memo through, because he was gonna be late, and there's no way, I mean, the council's the only one that can waive that penalty, so.
But I mean, it's not hurting anything, is it, Mary, as far as, okay.
The big thing was, and the reason we put the first and put the penalty, was a couple years ago when he failed to deliver it by the end of the year. When the year he chose to go present to Kingsford before presenting to us. And so that was in the next contract, we added the deadline and the penalty. This one, it's gonna be presented at the next meeting on the 18th. So my feeling is, like you said.
He
no
doesn't
harm,
get
no foul.
paid until,
Yeah.
right, but he doesn't get paid till we get it.
He'll be at the next meeting, so, you know, we can get that information to you, and then you can address it with him at the next meeting. I mean, we don't pay him until after we get it
No,
anyway.
and
Oh,
this
okay, I
payment
just
on
wanted to
here-
make sure that he's not getting it until the
This
job's
payment on
done.
here is just a partial payment. And he does not normally bill us the final payment until.
Wasn't it like 16 something, the total?
I've got the contract now.
It's
so I wanna say
18.5, I think.
18.5, oh, okay.
That was the total. And he doesn't normally bill us for the rest of it until, he's been here and given his report.
Ray, what did we do for Kaiser when they didn't fulfill their obligations? And
Well-
we waived some of the penalty and they didn't cost us anything extra? I think we should be doing the same thing, whatever we did for them.
Yeah, we met with them, and there was a negotiated settlement on, basically on the end. I mean, because we withheld with what we needed, you know, as far as.
But I mean, did Kaiser have to pay a penalty?
They
and-
did pay, yeah. They
Then
paid, but we didn't charge them the full boat because we didn't have the water anyway, but yet it was still late, and we said, hey, you know, it was late.
I think we should be consistent then. Kaiser didn't cost us any money and neither did Kenny, but if we charge a percentage, we should do the same for the percentage for Kenny.
I can have that for you at the next meeting. Like Mary said, it's not his final payment, whatever the penalty is, you know, it's not gonna be as much as the final payment. So while he's here, he gives a presentation, you know, you guys can hash that out. So, and I'll have that in a memo as to what we did with Kaiser to that,
Okay.
so you can have that percentage.
Anything?
One other thing here, going back to the vehicle inspection on 208 and 204, the third vehicle inspection / repair, there's no truck number, just out of curiosity, I'd like to get the truck number on that, Ray?
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, all the questions I had have already been asked and answered. So with that, I'm looking for a motion to approve manifest 2013-1 in the amount of $450,948.61. That's with the $2,000 reduction in the Dickinson Area Partnership.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
Motion made by Mark, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
No.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Okay, does anyone from the audience wish to address the council on the minutes manifest or any agenda item? If you do, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. You'll have 5 minutes. If not, there'll be further time for comment on any subject at the end of the meeting. Okay, for, right now I need a motion to go into public hearing.
Make a motion, we go into public hearing.
Support.
Motion made by Chris, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
We've now entered into public hearing to discuss the vacate of right-of-way near Grant Danielson's greenhouse. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At previous meetings, we had a request to come through to publish for public hearing on vacating right-of-way over at Danielson's greenhouse. There is actually 2 types of right-of-way. I did show you in your map within the packet. There's an alley that runs parallel to the, or perpendicular to the highway, and then there's another alley that runs parallel to the highway. We currently have an agreement with Mr. Milbrath on the alley that runs perpendicular to the highway in basically like a franchise, or not a franchise, but a use agreement. But it's cleaner to run it through vacating since the buildings cover that property. I did reach out Mr. Hines is here. He has a house on the corner which has a garage door that faces the alley. And we had a conversation last week and some concerns about access to the garage and maintaining that access. Talked with staff, and the city does not plow that right now on a regular basis. There may be a couple times we go through, but for the most part, we haven't been going through there. So from a plowing standpoint, it wouldn't knock us off a schedule. But again, you know, since there's not just one property owner involved in this, there's two. You know, I recommended to Tom to come in and also be here at the public hearing to voice concern. One way that we may want to deal with this is that we vacate starting at the end of his property. That would secure right-of-way, just a dead-end right-of-way, to ensure access to the house and the garage. That's one way to handle that. I think we talked about that. That was.
And then garbage pickup also.
Garbage.
In that.
We back down there now anyway, so that wouldn't change.
If we dead-ended that right-of-way, how would we handle plowing it? I know now we currently don't. We don't generally. Mr. Milbrath tends to plow the whole
Right.
thing. But he could decide not to. If we're gonna keep that chunk, how would we handle it with our plows?
We would have to backblade it. I mean, that's how we do it. When we deal with private property, there are a couple areas that, because it's our benefit to go straight through as opposed to going and stopping in similar situations, the property owners have allowed us to continue on through. We have very few private properties, but on a couple that we do, it is to our benefit to do it, so we, you know, we look to get approval, you know, to do that.
Would that work for you, Tom?
Yes.
That would work.
Okay, on the front part, the part of the, along the highway, would the MDOT be a property owner, or would the
That-
state be a property owner that would split the alley?
Yes, technically, that's how that would run. The, you know, that whole area that I show off the highway, that's the state right away. So.
Right, that's it, so,
Yeah, so that would be split, and it would go with those properties, so.
I was talking with Mark before the meeting, and did letters go out for this one to let people know we were having a public hearing?
We don't typically send letters for public hearing for vacating. What we do is we contact the people that are directly affected, you know, because that's who has the comments associated with the vacating. We looked back on our previous vacating. I mean, we went back all the way
I
through.
don't remember.
Yeah, no, but what we do is we contact, this one was easy because Tom's the only other property owner, but we've contacted the individuals directly affected with the right-of-way. That's how we've done it.
How is that gonna take place now with that storm sewer would be on the south side?
Well, we take and maintain all of our utility easements, whether it's storm or sanitary, water, electric. So, you know, he can't block it. We have to have access to our utility. He can't build over it if it's underground. You know, you have to maintain a certain area. So he basically has a driveway through. But I can understand why it would be his benefit, because quite frankly, he has liabilities on both sides, and people cutting through. You know, he's got customers going back and forth, so he has a little more control to try and maintain his liability.
The water lines that were running underneath that back alley, are those gonna be on the right-of-way that's left, or are those on the Milbrath property?
Well, they'll be on
after
his-
the vacation?
They'll be on his property. That, he owns the property, and we have a utility easement to go over his property.
What I'm getting at is all of the lines after the corner of Tom's property, or do they go on a diagonal?
They follow there's some lines that follow that old alley that head toward the city's right-of-way or the city's property.
Because what I was getting at is if they follow the property that the city is still maintaining, then those are the lines that are gonna have to be removed if they are still under the existing portion that the city is maintaining.
Well, what he's asking is, are those water lines on this part, or are they down here in the greenhouse area?
They go all the way through. And we have lines over private property in other areas. We maintain
No,
utilities.
his lines.
No,
The-
Ron's
his
lines
his
that
water
feed the
lines.
back of the private lines that we were talking about last time that I suggested.
Those go
are-
across to the creek. They're over here. They're beyond.
Yeah, I
Right, yeah.
realize that, the one we were talking about that comes through by the storm sewer, but
He said
he
he
does
has some
have,
that go across.
They go across. Those are on his line, his
Okay,
property.
that's what he's asking. is
Yeah,
that-
they're on his property
Okay.
at that point.
okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you were talking about our lines. I apologize.
no.
Yeah.
Do we have to make this decision today, or does the papers have to be drawn up with the modification that you suggested?
No, you can approve the resolution based on that.
Ron is okay with paying all the costs. I see there's a $500 property transaction fee, and he knows all that stuff.
Yeah, I talked to Ron, and he would pay the cost for handling this.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Any questions or comments from the public?
Would Ray be allowed, or would Ron be allowed, like say, put a gate in right away after winter, put a gate across there, so he doesn't have anybody driving through?
It would be his property. He would be allowed to do that, but we would have to have access to utilities, which means either he gives us a key or.
Which would be nice for him, so people could walk from greenhouse to greenhouse and you wouldn't have to worry about getting run over. That's probably he's looking at anyway, which would be nice if you could do that.
Any other comment from the public? Is there any comment from the public? Any further comment from the public? Okay, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion, we close the public hearing and go back into the regular session.
Second.
Motion made by Mark, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda, before we get into our communications, we have a appointment and presentations, a presentation on the Safe Routes to School project. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have representatives from the school here to help present, I guess, the successful grant application that we put in earlier this year for our Safe Routes to Schools project. Brad Graybold and Lou Steigerwald, they're here, and why don't you guys come up? We were successful in receiving that grant, and we heard that this past week, so.
Yeah, Brad's going to come up here and talk about all the people that need to be thanked on this, and I want to thank Brad because this has been a 6-year project for him, a long time coming. I want to thank you in the city for an investment of $35,000. You're going to bring nearly $400,000 worth of improvements to our city, and for our kids and for people who use our sidewalks. You know, at one point, we didn't think we were going to get near this much done. When Brad texted me that we'd got the grant and then the amount of the grant, I was thrilled for the city, for our kids, and for everybody that walks in town, you know, because we've all seen the kids in the winter walking in the streets because the sidewalks aren't in good repair and they're not wide enough. So this will help a great deal. It's an amount of money that a little bit ago we didn't expect. And again, this has been 6 years that Brad's been working on the project in the city, so I just wanted to thank you.
Good evening. Well, like Lou said, it's been a long process, and thanks for having us here and being able to present at prior council meetings. Our Safe Routes to School Committee has been made up of administrators, teachers, community members, people from our local engineering firm, the Michigan Department of Transportation, and many people from the fitness community. So it's a very a nice thing to come to the council meeting tonight and say that Michigan Department of Transportation Representative Meg Ackerman sent me an email about 10 days ago, and she said that we were awarded, City of Norway and Norway Elementary and Norway Middle School, Vulcan Middle School, which even though we're two separate schools, they treated us as one entity because we're a K-12 school district, $391,875.50. You may say, well, where does the 50 cents come from? Because the majority of that is for the infrastructure, which is the sidewalks that Lou talked about and that the engineers have done their studies on. And that total is $384,909. The non-infrastructure budget is $6,996.50. And what the non-infrastructure budget will allow us to do as a school is to get into the education and encouragement components of this grant. The infrastructure, the one that we've all been waiting for, is to make sure our sidewalks are wide enough and straight enough and smooth enough so that students can walk safely to school. Safe Routes to School was a project that was initiated by our local Safe Routes to School committee by the school district, but the city is the one that is going to benefit from this big time, the property owners along these routes and the kids that walk to school and bike to school on a daily basis. Even though we know that the bicycling has to happen on the street, we also want to encourage kids to bike. The city of trails, I mean, there's so many places that they can go within our city limits and outside. But as far as getting to school, we want to make sure that they're taking a safe route to a safe school. We think we've done a lot of work both in and out of the school system for this, and with Ray's help and the entire team, with our engineers we brought in from Wayne State and Michigan State, this is a good day for the city of Norway and a good day for Norway Vulcan area schools.
Ray, are we going to have this map that you have here available if the public wanted to see where we're going to be doing the project?
Yes, it can be available. We can get it scanned and put onto the web, and a little hard in a couple of the other medias, but we'll have it available here on the,
Well, at least if somebody wanted to see it here, we can have it.
yeah, we'll have it here.
I think this is really a great thing, especially considering the grant we got was larger than what we had expected and what we were asking for. I think this is going to be a real big benefit to the school and to the city also. I see on our thing we did move 3rd Avenue down to 2nd Avenue.
Yes.
That was one of the suggestions we had made through our discussions.
I agree with Jeremy. I think it's a good thing. I would like to see the city go into some sort of a discussion with the school board on restricting the parking somewhat on Walnut Street. Because I know that's one of the main runs for the buses. We had talked about a few years back about parking on one side, like we do on Section Street. And I would like you guys to go into some sort of discussion with Ray on that in the future.
Okay. Anybody else? Any questions or comments?
I think it's a great idea.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to congratulate everybody at the school too and thank them for all the hard work they've put in on this. I know there's been lots of meetings and discussions and groups and a lot of footwork and a lot of talking and a lot of working things out. So I'd like to thank everybody from the school's end who has been part of this.
Just for information, Brad, how does this compare with the other projects you've seen come out through Safe Routes?
This, to my knowledge, is the largest one that's been awarded.
Okay, that's what I heard too, so it's,
Just so people can hear, what he said was that this was the largest project that that Brad has seen awarded in Michigan for this. They couldn't hear you because you were too far from the mic.
I'd like to say too that any money we can get from grants to put into the city are all great, and I certainly welcome this wholeheartedly.
Any other question or comment? Thank you. Okay, first thing, we're into our communications this evening. We have 4 items on the agenda. The first is Resolution 2013-30, vacate of right-of-way near Danielson's greenhouse. We just discussed this in our public hearing, and this would be the motion to now go ahead and do the vacating. Somebody like to make the motion, or is there more discussion?
I make a motion, we approve resolution 2013-30 to vacate the alley right-of-way for Danielson's greenhouse upon the corner of Mr. Heinz's property.
Support.
Motion made by Mark, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes. Approval license agreement, Holy Spirit School. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This past summer, or early fall, I received notice in an application, a commercial site plan application actually, for a sign for a new Holy Spirit school sign. And we went through the process and everything looks good. The sign is appropriate, no problems as far as zoning, other than the sign is on city property. And when we look back through, obviously the old sign is on city property. So in talking with the planning commission and then also with the city attorney, probably the appropriate thing to do is to have a license agreement with Holy Spirit School. You know, we've had, that school has been in that location since the 60s, and that sign has probably been there since that time. So I don't think it's an issue of you know, having any issues with them having a sign there. It just, let's make it legal and have a license agreement. So we put together an agreement that's for council's review and hopefully approval.
Is the city, I mean, is the Holy Spirit School, I do think it's a good thing to get the sign out where it's more visible, but if this, I believe, to the best of my knowledge, that under the state of Michigan, Jay could probably help me with it, that if the sign is located not on the facility's property, that it needs a state license permit. And
It'd be a billboard.
as a billboard would be. And so I hope they're aware. I don't know if, because it's a school, if it's something different.
I think it's far enough off the right of way though that it's not considered a billboard on their properties.
But if it's not on the property where the facility is, it's on the city of Norway's property, it would have to be on the school property, not be.
Right, I think, I mean, that's I guess the attorney question, but as far as, you know, common sense would say is that, you know, that city property and that sign has been there. I know that under the billboard rules, they allow you to swap one sign for another sign, so on and so forth. But the highway, I know that the highway department, when I deal with them, they basically look at the highways and what's off the highways, whether it's public property or private property, you know, they're not gonna get into it. So, you know, it doesn't fall under, if you look at it strictly under zoning, because it's not on their property and it's on public property, then it's like we talked about the last time, it's really up to the city on how you deal with your public property and those sign rules. So, because zoning is only for on your property, you know, on
I
private
guess
property.
I was just recommending that they look into it before they start spending money and putting the sign there, that there is no state stipulation that they can't have it there without a billboard permit.
I believe the sign is already out.
Yeah, it's already up and it's been there forever, besides which it's not anywhere near state land, it's all on city streets. But we can check into it, that's a good point, and it's worth taking a look into, but I don't
Well,
think it's,
it's actually going to be close to Highway 8, so
okay, but I don't think it'd be encroaching a highway, would it?
it would depend on how far a
Yeah.
sign has to be back before, because you can be pretty far back and still be considered a billboard. It's an
Okay, well,
off-premise
We
advertising.
can check on it, we can check on it.
But that wouldn't have to be our concern anyway, as long as we give them rights. They can proceed with the state if they need to, but we wouldn't have to deal with it, I would.
Well, it meets all excuse me, go ahead.
We wouldn't have to delay our decisions on this tonight based on that.
No, I was just Ray to make them aware that they probably should check before they start constructing the sign, to make sure.
Well, it's a nice looking sign, there's no question about that. And I know it was over 50 years, almost 50 years ago it was done. Somebody must have been sleeping at the wheel when this happened the first time around. But I see no problem with it.
Personally, I have an issue with any of these license agreements. I don't like private entities using the city property like this. Just as a matter of principle, regardless of who it is. I think it's a nice sign. I think it looks good. They had one before, they're having one again. I got issues with license agreements in general.
You've been very consistent with that, Jeremy.
Any ideas, questions, comments? Do you want to move tonight on it?
I make a motion, we approve the license agreement with Holy Spirit School for the sign on city property.
Support.
Motion made by Dr. Hayes, supported by Lee. Roll call.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
No.
Mr. Menigini?
Yes.
Approval Resolution 2013-32, grievance procedures under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. The first thing, before I turn this over to Mr. Anderson, I noticed our resolutions are out of order. So we have 530 and then we
Yeah,
have 30 and 31. How did,
the last one that we approved was 31.
that last meeting?
Yeah.
All right, I just wanted to make sure, we had it right.
No, we're good.
Okay. Mr. Anderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This particular item, this grievance procedure under Section 504, this was something that was brought to our attention that since we are an active participant, specifically with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation in taking community development block grants, which are federal grants, that under their requirements, we need to have this posted grievance procedure. It's pretty straightforward. If somebody feels that they're being aggrieved or there's an alleged discrimination, they would, it says here clearly who they need to contact. They need to contact me in my office, and I think that would happen anyway, but it just needs to be clearly identified and posted. And so that's what this resolution, we have to have this resolution on file for the state. So we'd like to ask you that you approve this resolution, and we can send this on to the appropriate.
Do we have to
individual.
post this resolution anywhere?
We will post it up on our bulletin board,
Okay.
and then we'll also have it on our webpage.
All right.
If we're posting this, do we want to clean up some of the language in here? Just minor grammatical errors?
On the resolution?
Well, on the procedure where it has your name, Mr. Anderson or her designee.
Yes, we will do that before we post.
If you have other ones, you can either bring them up now, we can mark them, or just get them to Tricia. Is there any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that Resolution 2013-32 be approved.
Support.
Motion made by Lee, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
The last thing of our communications this evening is approval, Safe Routes to Schools engineering agreement. Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The last item on the agenda, as you mentioned, is the engineering agreement for the Safe Routes to Schools. It's a price not to exceed $35,000, and it's for Coleman Engineering. They were instrumental in putting this grant together and getting this approved, and so I would be happy to let them know that if council so choose to approve this agreement.
So even with, initially it was, the engineering was 10% of the grant, or approximately.
Yeah.
So the grant went up, but the engineering stayed where it was?
That's correct. And with an MDOT project, knowing how much paperwork and you know, how much engineering is involved, this is quite a deal. I've seen them as high anywhere from 15 to 20% of a project cost. So they are really stepping out for this. This is really good for the city.
Okay, any other questions or comments on it? The representative from Coleman is here this evening. Do you have any comments that you'd like to add?
Not really, just wanting to get going on it. There's a few things that need to get done before the snow flies. The survey would be good to get done. Some minor amount of survey that does need to get done, but there are a few things. And since it's being done through MDOT, there's a set schedule of, in order to get this thing constructed before school starts, the goal, next fall, you have to have your plans done like 6 months in advance in order to meet these MDOT schedules. So there is a little bit of a timing issue. This came up very quickly. We weren't really ready, sitting there waiting to put this proposal in, but when we found out fairly recently that you got the award, we were happy, of course, and then hit us as, we gotta get a proposal and get going on this. We can't sit there, for 2 months and then decide to do it later. So there was a little bit of a push here to get this going quickly.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the Safe Routes to School engineering agreement with Coleman Engineering not to exceed $35,000.
Support.
Motion made by Mark, supported by Dr. Hayes. Roll call.
Mr. Babalani?
Yes.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menegini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gotstein?
Yes.
And that's the conclusion of our business this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Does anyone from the audience wish to address the council on any topic? If you do, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. You'll have 5 minutes. Okay, Dr. Hayes, any comments?
I was going to ask, what is the time schedule for the proposed state park in our area?
I'm not sure if they have an actual time schedule. I know that Wisconsin and Michigan might be on a little different time frame, but they've been seeking advice over the last year as far as development or improvements. I haven't heard if there was anything in the hopper.
I know they're looking to expand what they currently have, but that has to come through meetings and discussions and a pretty long drawn-out process.
So there's still time for people out there to make comments and
Yes.
I believe
inquiries
so.
with the state, and I guess that was the point of my comment, that I'd like to encourage people who see this broadcast to look at it and make comments to the state. I think that with the presence of a state park in our area, that tourism is going to become a greater part of our economy, and I think the city has to look at that. And again, one of the, I think, key issues is the development of the spring, and whether we get it as a roadside stop or a retail establishment. I'd still like to see the spring open year-round. That would be one advantage the city would have. So again, I think we're going to see more and more tourism-related things in our area.
On the idea for the roadside park, at this point, our grant application got rejected on that for the spring. And just so people know, the state park that you're talking about is Pierce Gorge, when it was
Correct.
bought by the DNR.
The Pierce Gorge and the area south, that's
Yes.
just the north unit. There's the central and south units,
Correct.
which are also along the Menominee River.
And right now, from what I understand, they're looking to expand that to connect them or almost connect them. That's the way they're looking to go right now, on the Wisconsin and Michigan side. But do we have it on our website still? We had it up at one point, like a year ago, a link to the DNR thing for that.
I'm not sure, I'd have to,
If not, we can see if we can get that back up there, because they had the DNR had a website that you could go to make comments on what you thought should be done for development of it.
okay.
That's the only comment that I had tonight.
Lee?
Seeing as Mr. Pickard isn't here, maybe you can answer, Ray. How are we coming along on the leaf pickup?
I think we're doing pretty well, other than, I noticed like this morning, the leaves are coming down fast and furious right now. They're just not being swept up. So I'm a little concerned. I was talking to Dave this morning. I'm a little concerned that we get to the end of the week and we need to come by, well, the end of next week, which is right before deer season. We need to have that truck ready to go to plow. So if we get to the end of next week and we may have to consider, one of the suggestions I have is to leave the compost site open for a few more weeks, because the people are gonna end up having to haul themselves. Because we're gonna take the leaf equipment off of our truck, we have to do that. We may just recommend leaving it open for a little while longer.
And
So that's where we're at right now.
on the hydro, that gate leaking, has there been any movement on that at all?
I think Joe is still waiting on a price from contractors, not just one, but a couple of them. That's the last I've heard. That was a few weeks ago. So for whatever reason, it's been a slow go to get pricing on it.
The only other thing I have is just to remind the residents that the winter parking ban is in effect. And from the looks of it, we might be getting it Wednesday. That's all.
Chris?
I'd just like to compliment the staff on the leaf pickup this year. I don't know if it's just because I've been noticing it more, but I've seen them out quite a bit, keeping up on the leaves, and they've been keeping the streets cleaned of stuff blowing around, so they've been doing a really good job so far. That's all I have.
Mark?
I agree with Chris. I think they're managing it well with the leaf pickup, and they got adequate amount of staff running the trucks. I got a couple more here. I had put in 2 work requests for Travis Farm Road to be graded and something done with the bridge, and I don't know if it's been done yet. I seen the grader out today over by Knights Kingdom going through, and I'm hoping they went up Travis Farm Road. I seen in the executive session about ticketing sidewalk blockers with their vehicles. I guess I wanted to hear what the rest of the council had to say on that and maybe come to some sort of an agreement.
Well, my thoughts are that they should be. We have it it's in our schedule of fees right now. It's a parking ticket. We should be ticketing the people who are obstructing the sidewalk. That's my thought. That's my feeling.
I'm sure most of that can be solved by just somebody, police officer, say, give them a warning, you know? And I think that will take care of most of it, but if it's more than that, then they're gonna have to ticket. I mean, here we go with the safe routes to school, and people are gonna be parking on the sidewalks.
Well, and looking at where some of those routes are, you got people blocking the sidewalk now.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I think we should talk to the residents that we're having the issues with before we just start immediately ticketing them. I think what Lisa is gonna help. I mean, as soon as we talk to them, probably 90% of the issues are gonna be resolved.
We will do that. I mean, if when we start something, it's all or nothing. I mean, we can't selectively enforce. So that's why we bring it out and say, you know, there's going to be some difficult situations that we're gonna have to deal with, and we wanna make sure you guys are on board when we go out and start handling this. Now, what we're going to find out, because we've already had some discussions with some residents, and this will be a common theme. Their garages are one-car garages, they're right against the sidewalk, and they really have nowhere to park on their property. What I think people tend not want to do is park on the street, even though it's a local street. They can park on the street. I mean, we've mentioned that to some people, and they look at you like they're amazed. Oh, I can park on the street, you know. So that's something we're going to talk about. No, when there's snow, they can park on a boulevard. Okay, but if they don't have a boulevard, or if the boulevard's too small and they can't, you know, because they're going to come through with a sidewalk machine or something, you know, you still might be blocking the sidewalk. Again, in the winter, it might be a little more problematic, but they should be able to get up on the boulevard. So those are the types of questions we're going to get. Just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that before, as we went out and started to canvass and start talking to the individuals. But we do talk to them. We don't just slap a ticket on somebody. I mean, mean, we're gonna go out there, and might be a warning, contact us, or, you know, hey, this is in violation, kinda like, did you know? Before we actually ticket. So, it's even like the, winter parking ban. You know, really, the police chief has the ability to, you know, kind of, to, not give those tickets out until a certain temperatures, but we always say the first snowfall, you know, is the time we start ticketing. We do give warnings out, though. From now on, we'll be giving warnings out with that, you know, so.
We had our first snowfall, about 2 weeks ago?
You're right. Well, first appreciable snowfall.
Plowable snow.
Plowable snow, yeah. And it's normally into December, you know, the end of November. But, you know, that's just something you have to be aware of, is that come November 1st, we start. And at any time, it could be done, you know, so. I mean, one thing we want to be careful of is not only this time of year, but in the spring, when you lose your frost or don't have frost, and they start parking on the boulevards, you know, they're gonna rut up the boulevards, it's gonna be a bigger mess than trying to work with people until we get that good frost into the ground, so.
Since we're speaking of sidewalks, the sidewalk machine for this winter, we come up with a route for that, and what are we doing to deal with the issues of kind of messing up people's lawns and?
Pretty much deal it with like we did last year. The route is pretty consistent with what we did last year. I don't think there's any magical change or difference from what we had. If we have a problem with veering off and getting into somebody's yard, we're gonna have to deal with that. I mean, we'll have to deal with it. You know, when we have the 4-foot sidewalk, and especially when it's an older sidewalk where it actually goes from 4 foot down to 3.5 because of the grass coming in, I mean, there's nowhere to go. It's a 48-inch bucket.
I think people understand that, is when they get
Yeah.
way off.
But if we go out and we mess something up in the spring, we're gonna have to come fix it. That's just. By the way, we do that with the plows too. I mean, if we're at the end, there's a few dead ends and we make the turn, and come spring and it's all a mess, yeah, we come in and we deal with it.
I got a couple more. I had somebody approach me, Ray, on bicycles on the main street.
Yep.
Gal stepped out of one of the businesses and almost got ran over. So
Yep.
I'd like to see the officers just kind of mentioning it to some of the kids and maybe put it on a TV channel.
Might be good too when they're up at the school, doing their stuff up there.
Yeah,
To bring it up then.
Lee brought that up earlier as well, or this last week as well. He got hit up by some of the residents. And I talked with Chief Schaefer. We have to get the signs back up. It's one of the things, like the U-turns and other things. When the lights came in and we redid this Main Street, the signs came down for no bikes on the Main Street, and they didn't get put back up. And they do help, and as far as, you know, but I think with the Safe Routes program and some of the education, we're gonna hit that as well.
You know, maybe on a school channel,
Yeah,
maybe they can put something on there.
yeah, because I don't think kids fully realize how dangerous it is. And they can go into the alley. If they're going from place to place, they can use the alley. It's pretty safe. We'll get down. We just paved a number of those alleys, so it's.
The other thing, one of the other things that I have is I see the safety coordinator. We're looking at getting a different one. The other guy is no longer. I would like to see under Joe's contract, taken a look at, because I believe Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, had something in his wage for safety coordinator.
But this is for the
I know
MEU.
this is OSHA.
This is for the MEUW, so this person handles Norway, Gladstone, Nagani. I mean, it handles a number of communities. You don't want Joe to be going to these other communities. I mean, if you don't want to be in the program, we can back out of the program, you know, and do our own thing. But this coordinator that I'm
Well, I
talking
guess I
about
just
is for
wanted
these
to
other
see if,
communities.
you know, I hate to pay somebody, 2 people for doing the same job.
Yeah.
And if,
Yeah, they aren't, but that's,
okay, I guess I'd like to see that.
okay.
And then under this property sale, Ray, to Wisconsin, there was 407 acres total that was possible? Is that what I was getting out of that memo?
Yeah, there was a request, when we put a letter in to the state for the 40 acres, not the state, the FERC, to release the 40 acres so we could sell up by the piers. The state of Wisconsin called us expressing interest, and we dealt with that a couple meetings ago. But they also expressed interest in all of that property the city owns across on the Wisconsin side down by the dam. And so they went ahead and appraised that property, and that's what that letter, that email, is that if we're interested in selling to them, this is what they would be willing to buy it for.
Is that something that we should be looking at being a liability of the dam? I know that we had accumulated that island that was down there by the dam.
Yeah, the island is not
liabilities?
part of this sale.
It's not?
No, we would keep the island in our possession. We don't want to give up the island.
Okay, is the other property a benefit to the city to hold, being we had purchased the island just for liability reasons, if it's close to the dam?
Yeah, the other property doesn't have the flooding liability that the island has. I think it's definitely should be looked at from a hazmat or hazard situation, but most of that property is, we're maintaining it at this point at a cost rather than, the DNR would have to maintain it the same way we would through this park recreation, and we have to allow people, under the same type of rules that they would be under. So,
And if the
That's
DNR
what-
had it and somebody wanted to bring their horse carts down there, they'd have to go to them.
they would have to go to them. They would be under the same type of restrictions that we would be under. So it won't look much different other than, they might have some better resources to make it more accessible, at least from a park standpoint. But, we still have,
It has no connection to their park, right?
right
Park
now,
area, because
they're,
it's in a whole different area, correct?
correct, but they're doing a north, central, and southern part of, they actually own south of it. So there's connections that they have. So they're definitely interested in it.
Is there legal access?
Yes.
Then I think we should look at marketing it rather than
We can't.
we can't.
No,
Even
we
if
can't.
it's, just because we can't get it out of the FERC?
Correct. This probably is the only way that we can get it out of the FERC license and do something with it. Outside of that, I can't even get the little 4 acres out on the Michigan side. There's 13 acres across the road that have no connection, and I'm struggling getting that out of the FERC license. It doesn't follow common sense. Some of the reasons from the agency standpoint, you
Well,
get frustrated over it.
Yeah.
A
So-
part of it was, the only thing it could be used for, but because it's in that dam area, is recreation. It's public recreation, it has to be open to the public.
Yeah, that's what FERC ultimately wants it for, is for public recreation. So, basically it'd be run the same way we do, other than they would have a means by improving it as opposed to us who, we're just maintaining it.
Is there any beneficial property that's adjacent to the dam on the Wisconsin side that we should be switching that they own now?
That's not
That-
in the license?
That's immediately across from the dam on the Wisconsin side. That if we had to bring barges in or something like that, or, that we could switch, that we would be able to be useful for us. If we had to work on the dam and get something in there.
Well, that's something that before we finalize any property deal, we would have to make sure that we don't divest ourselves of something we need from an operational standpoint. One of the areas that I mentioned to Joe and us going back and forth and what we need, what we don't need, is that section right next to the dam. Because then when you walk out, you wouldn't be onto your own property. You walk off the dam into Wisconsin. So there's probably a small section there that we should probably hold so that we own, that area. Exactly how much and what that looks like, I don't know. This is pretty early in the process.
Yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
think we should take a real good look at that.
Yeah, but we definitely don't want to divest ourselves of anything we need from an operating standpoint.
But that total of 407 included all of that, right?
Yes, it's all of that. It
Okay.
does not include the island. We don't,
Okay,
We're not
I just want to make
selling
sure that we hold whatever we need adjacent to the dam out of that 407.
now, one of the reasons why, though, we did buy the island is because of the potential of something being built on the island. If we sold the island, you know, to the DNR, that's not gonna happen because they can't, you know, you can put the restriction in, FERC doesn't want anything built. They're not going to advance any kind of a development that would hinder our operations. FERC wouldn't let them. So, I mean, we could sell the island as part of this and be comfortable that it's going to be okay. But we have to make sure through this whole process that we don't miss something in that. So it'll be the better part of next year for them to get through their process, adding it to their boundaries, so they can even have a conversation. The reason they gave me that number is because they had an appraised value that we dealt with up on the 40, and the guy was doing the appraisal at the same time, so I questioned him and said, well, you need to give us a number so we can start getting an idea what you guys are thinking. So that's why they sent it to us early.
Okay.
Ray, offhand, or maybe Mary would know, what are we paying in taxes to Niagara Township? I want to say, if I remember right, about $6,500 a year, but I could be wrong on that. You remember what that is, Mary?
Off the top of my head, I wanna say it's 3,200, 3,400.
Thought it was more than that.
I
Well,
I remembered 5,000 myself.
I can check freely.
yeah, I'd appreciate that, Mary,
I
just
didn't think it was-
out of curiosity.
I'd say it's somewhere in that range, $5 grand. We
That's,
pay,
that's the 40 plus what's down at the dam.
yeah, and we actually have a timber plan down on the large parcels. I don't believe we have that up on the 40. You remember if they, I don't think they put that, they cut it, but I don't think they put it into a timber plan.
Yeah, when we pulled those, I don't remember if it was on all of them or not.
Yeah, we'd have to look, but that did save us money in the tax area, but we still, you know, I think it's somewhere around $5,000, give or take. So that's a cost per year.
The only other thing, Ray, I got is, under the DDA meetings, there was $1,200 for Danielson's greenhouse for flowers. I'm hoping that they rotate that purchase with the other flower shops unless it's bid out,
You know,
that's in the city.
I'll bring that up, to the DDA. I think, they've kind of, the people that are handling that, they've just gone and done their work. I don't think the DDA board has been directing them to do that, but I think that's only proper. And in fact, I want to say that she's going to both, that she's gone to both.
She does get some stuff from both.
Yeah.
I don't know about
But
dollar
I think
amounts,
you
I
gotta
don't know
work
if it's
at-
split of the amounts, but there has been some from both.
I think you have to work at evening that out, though.
Yep,
I agree.
okay, that's all I got.
Well, 5 of the 6 things I had have already been mentioned and discussed, so I'll scope my last one. Ray, any idea when the spring is gonna be closing for the season? Have we decided yet?
Well, it goes to temperature, obviously, with freezing, so, I'd say you've got a couple more weeks. You know, at night it's getting pretty cold, it's starting to get pretty cold.
I was just checking to see if you had a plan where before deer season it was gonna be shut, or,
Typically, it's not before deer
So it's
season,
not-
typically it's before, like, right towards the end of November.
okay, I just wanted to double check that, just so people knew, because I know a lot of people like to go in the spring.
I've had a few complaints, these colder mornings, a little bit of wind, with the water splashing up, it's getting pretty icy. We get down to, into the 20s.
Well, if it's unsafe, we're gonna have to close her down, so we'll put out as a notice as much as possible. We usually take a couple days, you know, give a couple days before we close it.
Okay, and that's all I had, like I said, the other 5 have already been discussed. Mary, anything you'd like to add? Tricia? Jay?
No, I have nothing to add, thank you.
Ray?
I have nothing else other than go Bears.
We have no,
They're losing 14-0.
Ah, thanks.
Are they really?
we have no executive session this evening, so I need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Support.
Motion made by Mark, supported by Chris. Roll call.
Mr. Oja?
Yes.
Mr. Menehini?
Yes.
Dr. Hayes?
Yes.
Mr. Gottstein?
Yes.
Mr. Babalaro?
Yes.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, my gosh.
We should comment, that was Ray's comments. He's